Hello everyone, Storm 101 here. Today we'll be talking about the severe weather potential that may go on across parts of the plains and Midwest over the next couple of days. There's a threat later today, tomorrow, even on day 3, and even on day 4 as well. So it's going to be a pretty active, decently active period of severe weather across parts of the plains and Midwest as well. I may do 2 videos today depending on how long the severe weather part takes. If the severe weather part takes, a short period of time, then we may continue on to talk about the tropics. If it does take a while, which it more likely will, I'll put the tropics in a different video later today. So let's try not to waste any more time. Let's go to get started with the SPC Outlook here for today. We got a large slight risk area, really anywhere from northern Kansas through eastern Nebraska, southeastern South Dakota, southern Minnesota, the northwestern half of Iowa into western Wisconsin within that slight risk, with that marginal risk expanding all the way down into the Texas Panhandle and even as far north as central Minnesota. The tornado threat will stay low. We don't have a whole lot of wind shear to work with its setup here, although a 5% may be possible, especially in this zone in here. If there's going to be a 5% tornado risk, it'll probably be somewhere right in this area in here. We'll be able to take a look to see what's going on out there right now in their hourly mesoscale analysis here in just a little bit. David G. winds will also be there. You do have that margin risk for eastern North Carolina too, with that wind risk as well. And the hail risk really focused in on eastern Nebraska with that hatched area. If there's going to be any enhanced risk, it's probably going to be the hail, given the fact we'll have steep lap rates and also quite a bit of instability. So that could lead to a significant hail threat, and a 30% may get added. And there might be a chance for a 30% wind threat as well. It'll depend on if those cluster thunderstorms really start to get going, which is something we're not completely sure about yet. Then on day 2, which is tomorrow, we got a couple of margin risks. We got one across central Montana, and you got another margin risk for parts of the Midwest down into southeastern Kansas around the Ozarks area. They do mention there is a possibility that a slight risk may be needed on the setup here, which I think it will be needed soon. The tornado risk will stay at low in 2%. I do not expect an upgrade to the tornado risk. Wind is low end, but I think we're going to see an upgrade to the wind risk. Hail risk is also low end as well. But don't be too surprised if a slight risk does get issued somewhere in that marginal risk zone. Then on day 3, we kind of start things over again here. Another shortwave trough will start to move in into parts of the plains here. This will continue to move to the east here. There may be a chance of slight risk may get issued on day 3, maybe tomorrow. We'll see what happens there. As soon as that shortwave trough continues to move to the east, there is also a little higher severe weather risk probability on day 4, which is Tuesday. We got a 50% slight risk across parts of Wisconsin, Iowa, far southeastern Minnesota, far northwestern Missouri, even to far southeastern Nebraska as well within that 15% slight risk area. Really, the primary threat with this will be probably damaged winds, hail, maybe an isolated tornado risk. But let's check out what's going on out there right now for today. So this is the SPC mesoscale analysis here. And as you can see here, this is your surface-based CAPE. And there is quite a bit of instability out there. We already got 4,000 joules per kilogram of CAPE out there across west central Iowa, which is quite a bit of instability. 4,000 CAPE is pretty high, especially in the morning hours. We could probably see areas may get close to 5,000 joules per kilogram today. We'll see. It just depend on the coverage of these showers of thunderstorms, which currently we do have some shower thunderstorm activity within this area in here, and I think they'll continue to increase over the next couple of hours here. And there may be a chance some of those could be strong to severe. But some of the better storms are right now in northeastern Iowa and southeastern Minnesota. There's also a little cluster of thunderstorms across parts of Wisconsin as well. Let's check out some of the other ingredients. This is your mixed layer cape. It's not really that impressive out there, but there is 2,000 plus across parts of central and western Iowa with a pretty small spot of 2,500, and it just got updated. So we'll see what we got going on right now. Okay, so now there's 2,000 joules per kilogram of mid-level cape, which is pretty favorable for severe weather. And you can see that 2,500 has expanded into southwestern Minnesota as well. So the instability numbers will increase throughout the day. Let's go back to the surface-based cape and see what it's got now. And it doesn't look like there's much of any changes there with the surface-based cape. Let's check out some other things. Let's check out the downdraft cape, and you can see a really 800 plus that's favorable for some damage winds. And you can see there, right up here, it's not really favorable for damage winds, but if you go into the other side of the state, in parts of central and southwestern Iowa, you do have areas with 1,000 to 1,100, which I think those numbers will likely increase over the next several hours. Even this little cluster of thunderstorms here is getting into a favorable environment here for some damage winds. Looks like they just issued a Mescal discussion here. A threat for large hail damage and winds and perhaps a few tornadoes may increase through the early afternoon. Watch issuance is possible. So that's like I said with those thunderstorms. And we do have a couple severe warning storms up there as well that could produce some large hail up there. The wind shear. Most of your wind shear currently is across parts of southeastern Minnesota, northeastern Iowa, and even for western Wisconsin. It's where we do have some of the best wind shear right now. There's also another area of decent wind shear back into central Nebraska, so that could lead to some more organized storms out there as well, especially what could happen later in the day. We'll check out those low overlap rates. Not really existent since we're still in the morning hours. That's just to be expected, but we do expect those numbers to increase throughout the day. However, mid-level lap rates, there's actually quite a bit out there uh, for some elevated numbers, which this will be favorable for some large hail as well. Really, 7 plus is all you need for some severe weather with mid-level lap rates, which we do have that across the western part of the risk area. Definitely gotta watch in these areas in here for the potential for what we could see a little MCS there, or Mesca convective system, as well, which we'll take a look into those models in a little bit. Here's the superset composite. This is a combination of wind shear and cape. We do have numbers of 4 to 8, not very high numbers, but the threat of supercells is there either way. So let's check out the HER model here. So this is its latest run, 14Z. You can see here if those cluster thunderstorms will continue to move east and northeast into parts of Wisconsin here throughout the day here. It's not really showing those thunderstorms across parts of northeastern Iowa and southeastern Minnesota, so it's not really doing a good job right now. But it does show some clearing across a good chunk of these areas, though, as we get to late afternoon hours. And then you start to see some storms to form kind of nearby the Minneapolis area, since some of these storms can produce some large hail. We'll get a sounding out there and see what it looks like. And you can see here indicated by the HER model, it's a pretty decent environment here for all hazards. You got the hail threat, you got decent amount of instability and lap rates, which does lead to that hail threat. There is some wind shear to work with as well, and also a decent hodograph, so that could lead to a low-end tornado threat, even with the wind direction of height as well between 1,000 and 700 millibars. And this is also favorable for some damage winds. Downdraft Cave 1200, low overlap rates is a little bit steep. You also do have the dew point and temperature line spread part of the surface. So this will be favorable for all hazards indicated by the HER model. Which that's just where I do think some of your greatest wind shear is going to be up here where currently is right now. I glitched out a little bit there. Draw that a little bit better. So somewhere in there, that's probably have the better shot of seeing some supercells, maybe even for an isolated tornado. What's interesting here about the HER model, it does show a big cluster of thunderstorms forming up in Wisconsin. and that actually will continue to move to the south here. Now, this is just one model. Keep in mind of that. This is just one model. But like I was saying earlier, pay attention to Nebraska. You got a big cluster of thunderstorms out in Nebraska. If the thermal's correct, that'd be a pretty bad flash flooding setup there. I mean, check out all those storms out there. And eventually these storms will try to become more organized later on in the evening, which I think they will get a little bit more organized later on. But it doesn't really quite show that. But it looks like what it may be trying to show is a Mexico convective vortex. So that might move to the east here, and that could produce a severe weather threat across parts of the Midwest in the next day here. A couple of models have been hinting on a Mexico convective vortex that could produce some severe weather later in the next day. Let's check out the rapid refresh model here and see if it's got a preference. And it does show some of that shower thunderstorm activity across parts of southeastern Iowa. Not southeastern Iowa, northeastern Iowa, and southeastern Minnesota. Not quite showing that big cluster of thunderstorms in Wisconsin, but that's okay. But it does still show some of those storms. Actually, it does show the thunderstorms a little bit slow with a cluster of thunderstorms. But you do see here as we continue on throughout the day. Now, this was probably overdone with the convection, but it does show some pretty decent shower thunderstorm activity across parts of Nebraska, Iowa, up into Wisconsin. So which could lead to a flash flood threat as well. Let's check out the environment here by the rapid refresh. You can see here, probably a little bit underdone with the instability right now. Surface-based Cape currently, so we're at like 15Z. It's underdone with the Cape. 2800, we're already seeing places that's got 4000. So that's a little bit of a flaw with the run here. So I think this is going to be a little bit underdone with the instability, but I think that's just because it's overdone with the convection. It's not really a great model to use, but it ain't too bad. But we'll take a look at one sounding. We'll check out southwestern Iowa here, see here what's got. And you can see here, it's not a bad sounding, but it does have some wind shear to work with. It also does have a decent hodograph as well. It ain't too bad right there. We also see here again, decent amount of wind shear. You do have some wind direction of height, but keep in mind the winds are not that strong with that wind direction of height, so the tornado threat will still stay low. Despite it having pretty good wind direction of height, there's still going to be a low wind tornado threat because those winds are a little bit on the weaker side. But check out your instability. There's decent amount out there. There's also a decent hail threat and wind threat with the downdraft Cape, and also feels a bit of evaporates. Also looking pretty good. So this is a environment probably for all hazards. We'll move a little further to the northeast here, where we do have some of that greater wind shear values. And see what it shows up there really quick. And you can see here, it's not as great as the last one, but it does still show a pretty decent tornado threat, as you can see there with that hodograph. It's a decent sized one. Decent amount of wind shear again. You do have some wind direction of height there. A little bit more significant than the last one, but keep in mind the winds are a little bit on the weaker side. It ain't like very strong winds. If we were seeing very strong winds with that wind direction of high, we could be talking about a chance for significant tornadoes. But in this case, the winds are on the weaker side. So keep in mind of that. Instability values, a little bit lower, but it's still favorable for some severe weather either way. Downdraft Cape is under 800, but it's close. There's also some not bad lap rates as well. So this will be a favorable environment here for all hazards too, but the hail threat will probably stay a little bit lower. And same way with the damage wind threat as well. So that's a rapid refresh. Let's take a look to the high-risk NAM, and then we'll be able to continue on for the next couple of days here from now. And you can see here from the high-risk NAM, it does show some of that widespread convection going on out there. Looks like it's a little bit overdone with that convection, with that morning stuff. But it does show a decent cluster of thunderstorms may try to form across parts of western Wisconsin. I'll take this as a grain of salt because it's not been doing so well with the convection over the last couple of days here. But like I said earlier, pay attention to parts of Nebraska. Yeah, check that out. Pretty decent cluster thunderstorms may try to form out there. And that may continue to move to the east. And when daylight is gone, as you get into the overnight hours, you start to lose some of that daytime heating and they start to die down. But you also notice here as we get into Sunday, you see something that's spinning right there? That's a Mystical convective vortex, and typically these things can be pretty unpredictable, and they can produce a decent amount of severe weather, including the chance for tornadoes. And you can see here as we get into the Sunday, in the late afternoon hours, you do have a decent amount of convection out here, anywhere from northern Illinois down into parts of Missouri. And as we kind of continue on, you do see the NAM is Iris Dam is still predicting a Mescal convective system, but it does have a bias of producing too many clusters, so I won't buy too much of that right now. But I would focus on these storms out here, though. These might become a little bit more supercellular on Sunday, so that's definitely something we need to watch here. It's a potential for tornadoes. And as you move on to Monday, the threat does shift back to the west here across parts of the plains. But that MCV does move away, but with those leftover outflow boundaries, you can get some more storms out there on Monday, but the chance of severe weather will be a little bit lower. You can see your MCV does move up here, but it's pretty much gone by that point. It pretty much dissipates. We'll see if it's underdone with that instability. And not as bad as the rapid refresh, but it's still underdone a little bit. But it ain't as bad. It's a little bit closer. But you can see here as we get later in the day here, later today, you do see widespread areas of 4,000, isolated 5,000 plus. I think there is going to be some places that will see 5,000 plus joules per kilogram of Cape later today, so definitely going to watch for that. And then as you move on into Sunday, you do have a decent amount of instability out there. We get sounding in northern Illinois. We'll see what we get here from the high-res now. If it's going to load for us. There we go. Doesn't really show much of a way of wind shear in this environment. It really doesn't. There is a lot of analogs matching with the potential for some hail. But I think it's still going to be a low wind threat. But it is a decent environment too for damage wind, so the edge of Cape is 900 plus. Plus those low evaporates is there as well. It's a little bit steep with those low evaporates. Plus there's not much wind direction of high, so it doesn't look to be a big tornado setup or anything like that. Indicated by the Harris Dam. We'll see what happens here. There's also a decent elevated mix layer right here, which may help with that hail threat just a little bit as well. And also help build up those storms as well. Well, I may have to check out the superset composite. And you can see here, as we get into Monday, there's a pretty large area of 4,000 plus joules per kilogram of Cape at that point, with some spots 5,000 plus. Check out the superset composite by the high-res dam here. So this kind of indicates where the environment might be best for supercells. It's just a combination of wind shear and Cape. You see here, it's a pretty low chance here. It's really anywhere from 1 to 2. But if you do go down to southwestern Missouri, did not mean to say Kansas. If you go down into southwestern Missouri, there's a little bit elevated area there. But it looks like the tornado threat may stay very low. And I think the primary threats for Sunday's threat looks to be damaged winds and maybe some hail with those sorts. There might be a little bit better cold air aloft up there. Let's move on to the NAM here, see what it suggests, and it does also show a big cluster of thunderstorms up in northern Wisconsin, so we may have to watch Wisconsin there, and there might be a cyclist upgrade might be needed, but I think those cluster thunderstorms that's going on right now may mess up the second round. We'll see what happens with that. But further back to the west, you do see some thunderstorms developing, really anywhere from southeastern Minnesota all the way down into parts of Kansas, Nebraska, western Iowa, even goes down into parts of Texas and Oklahoma from the NAM. So continue on throughout the day here, you do see the leftovers from that MCV right here, which is formed by that Mexico convective system. That's going to continue to move up into somewhere in eastern Iowa, which can force some storms. Maybe a possible squall line here. So you can see it does show a line of storms from southern Wisconsin down to southern Missouri. So that could lead to a damaged wind threat, possibly. And as you move on to Monday here, the MCV pretty much dies out really anywhere with some of those leftover outflow boundaries could form some storms, but the severe weather threat will be extremely low. And then we're going to see what happens on Tuesday here, which is going to be the next day we'll be talking about out here. It doesn't show much of any development out there, but I'm sure in the next couple rounds we'll probably start to show some of that development. So let's check out the environment here. So surface-based cape, it's going to be a little bit underdone for later today. And then you can see here as we get into tomorrow, it's a little bit higher, maybe too aggressive that cape, but it does show some pretty good numbers out there. Plus, it's a little farther to the west than the Harris NAM was showing. It's showing to be a little bit slower with this MCV. You can see here a little bit of a better damage wind for by the looks of it here. Has some of those pretty decent downdraft winds. Quite a bit of stability out there. Downdraft cape is a little over 1,000. Low of lap rates ain't too bad either. And there's also not much wind shear and very weak elevated mix layer. So this will be a favorable environment here for maybe just damaged winds, maybe some small hail as well. The tornado threat will probably stay very low. It'll be pretty limited on that day. To check out as we get into Monday, check out all the end stability out there. I mean, 5,700. Now, luckily enough, there's not really going to be any boundaries or anything to get storms to get going out there, which is good news. But as we get into Tuesday, this is where things start to get very interesting with this next round of storms. It's even showing 6,000 joules per kilogram of cape across parts of southwestern Wisconsin here. You do see a cold front moving in here, that's what's going to make these storms pop off here. And let's look at a couple soundings here. Let's look into eastern Iowa here and see what we got here. Pretty impressive amount of cape here. Not a whole lot of wind shear to work with though. Almost nothing with the cape there. But check out all this instability though. I mean, 7,500, that's a lot. 1,300 with downdraft cape. Low-level lap rates is pretty strong, but even the mid-level lap rates too is also on the moderate side. So this would be favorable for maybe for a damage wind event and maybe some hail as well with some of these storms here, especially when they first form. Let's go into that better threshold here. Probably going to be a contaminate sounding. Yeah, shows a more significant setup here within that 6,000 joules per kilogram. It actually shows 8,500 cape. Wow, that's a lot. 1,700 downdraft cape. Lap rates pretty good as well. Wind shear is a little bit stronger, but not that much stronger. So this would be favorable for large hail and damaged winds. So we definitely have to watch out on this setup here. And even a 5,000 plus threshold continues even all the way down into parts of Indiana and southwestern Michigan as well. But really the primary area to watch here is really going to be parts of Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa, Missouri, and Illinois on this day here. Which I think that severe weather threat may likely continue to the overnight hours, especially when these storms start to form here. They'll continue on for probably for a while here. Not really going to say if this is going to be a torrential threat or not, given the fact those upper level winds are not really there with the setup here, but we could probably see an intense cluster thunderstorms maybe at first, but they probably start to lose steam because they do lose some of that upper level wind support. But it's going to be something pretty interesting to watch, though. It will be interesting to watch. Well, check out the European model here. So this is 12 o'clock on Tuesday. You do have a couple cluster thunderstorms here and there. You got one in Wisconsin. You got one in the lower Ohio Valley. You do have one back into South Dakota about 12 o'clock. If you move on to 3 o'clock here, let's check out how much instability there's out there. There is going to be a lot of instability. They're going to be in the very high levels of instability. I remember the last run, it shows some places 7,100. I mean, that's a lot. But it does have places where it is 5,000 to 6,000 joules per kilogram of CAPE, which is a lot. It's still a lot either way. If you move on to 7 o'clock here, some of that greatest instability does move into parts of south and eastern Wisconsin. We're going to see where these storms do form, though. And it does form along that cold front there. And definitely a big time squall line of storms there. It could be a pretty nasty MCS, though. I mean, check out the lightning intensity. Could be a lot of lightning out there. But with that smoke in the air, which may interrupt this setup here a little bit, but I've heard someone did say usually smoke could create more lightning. I think that's correct. That more smoke, if you got smoke in the air, it could create more lightning, which I think it can, because I've seen that happen one night back here in Kentucky with one MCS. There was some smoke in the air, and there was just lots of lightning out there. So I think that's true. We'll see on the setup here, but there is going to be a lot of lightning either way with these storms. Doesn't matter if there's going to be much smoke or not. There is going to be a lot of lightning out there. But let's check out those upper level dynamics here. So let's look at 500 millibars. You really want to see if there's like a northwest flow, which in this case, I think the better chance where these storms may be strong and severe might just be along the front. And at 500 millibars, the winds are not that strong. It really isn't. A little bit misplaced here. If these 500 millibar winds were to be placed a little bit further to the east, it could be looking good at the radial threat. But in this case, they are a little bit misplaced here. If you look at 850 millibars, you can actually see some of those thunderstorms as well. But either way, there looks to be a damaging wind threat, maybe some hail as well. So Tuesday is definitely something we got to watch here. Here's the GFS ball's thoughts, and here's the low level jet, which is not really that strong, but 500 millibars, it actually shows a little bit stronger. So if malls do trend towards what the GFS is showing, we could be looking at possibly another derecho threat. Maybe. That's a big maybe. We'll see what happens. But right now, the chances of that's pretty low. Keep in mind of that. That's the GFS thoughts. Here's the icon model. It actually shows that might just be a little bit more progressive there. Yeah, it looks like it's a little bit more progressive for the icon model. But if you go back to GFS, look at all that cape out there. I mean, there is plenty of cape out there. And it's going to be a pretty quick shortwave trough because really about the next day, the chance of severe weather is a little bit lower. And it may move a little bit further to the southeast, but it looks like that front may stay stationary and doesn't move a whole lot. But Tuesday is definitely a day we need to watch for severe weather really across parts of the Midwest as well. But we'll have a better idea as we get closer to Tuesday as well. By looking on the clock here, looks like this video here has got very long, so I might just put the tropics in the next video later today. But anyways, guys, that's all for you guys today. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys like this video, hit the like button. If you already like my channel, hit that subscribe button, hit the bell notification so you never miss an upload. If you guys have questions about this, leave it in the comment section down below. I hate you guys' questions, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.